In a previous video, I was talking about one of the age-old classic lures, the Lizard. And I had a comment from Jackson SRT, and he was asking if I could show you guys some ways to rig it. So I wanted to start out by saying, when it comes to bass fishing, there are standard practices for how you rig particular lures. But the more and more you bass fish and the longer you're in this sport, you will realize that there are no wrong ways to rig lures. When you get in specific situations, you'll see that those situations dictate how you need to present that lure and how you may change the way you rig it. The most common way I like to throw a Lizard is just on a simple Texas rig. I leave that weight free sliding, don't put any bobber stop or peg it or anything, and it's just a simple EWG hook. I'm sure a round bend would work, just personal preference. I like the EWG when I throw this. I rig that so that the flat side of the Lizard is where the bend of my hook is. If you watch your bait fall in the water, that heavier part of your hook, which is this bend, there's a lot more metal down here, that's gonna fall first in the water column, so you want that bait to sit upright and look more natural. Another really good way to rig it is on a Carolina rig. It's basically the same idea as a Texas rig. The only difference is it's going to keep that bait a little bit higher off the bottom and give it a nice subtle fall back to the bottom instead of having that weight up close to that bait. One thing I've done before that I don't think a lot of guys do is you can cut this bait in half and I'll throw this on the back of a jig as a jig trailer. Now if we want to get into some weirder things that you may not have thought of that absolutely will still catch fish, you can throw it on something like this swing head. With all these extra appendages, they have a lot of motion in the water. So if you throw it on this swing head, you fish it just like you would any other time, let that hit bottom, you just give that bait a slow retrieve, and with all those extra appendages moving all about, it's going to really attract a lot of bites. You can throw it on something like a shaky head, maybe rip off those back appendages, something a little more subtle for those high bluebird sky days where those bass are just a little bit more picky, or maybe even something like a swimming worm head. So this is just a specialized hook where the basically bullet weight is attached to the shank of the hook itself so it won't slide, and this will come through grass really well. So if you're fishing some grass beds, that may be something you want to give a try. And like I said at the beginning, there's not really a wrong way to rig it, just whatever situation you're looking at. Think of the techniques that you would throw any other bait on, like a creature bait or a stick worm or a curly tail worm, and you can find a way to apply this Lizard to that technique. And the advantage of that is those techniques usually are not thrown with something like this. And so when you provide a different profile using a technique that is successful in those conditions you're fishing, you're more likely to catch those bass that may be heavily pressured.